This portion of New Day Northwest is sponsored by Seattle Children's.
Hi there, everybody. A new school year can bring up feelings of anxiety for students of all ages for any number of reasons. Joining us today to talk about what to do about that is Dr. Yolanda Evans from Seattle Children's. She is also the lead author of their blog, Teenology 101, How to Figure Out Your Teen. So what do you recommend to parents about sort of getting to the bottom of what's causing the anxiety?
I think the first thing is just not minimizing it and really making sure you acknowledge that your child is going through something hard, and then really asking them what they're worried about and getting a sense of what it is so you can try to make a plan for the rest of the year.
Well, I like that idea of affirming what they're feeling, because it can be tempting to say, oh, everybody's nervous on the first day of school and just plow past it, but stopping and acknowledging and discussing is important.
Exactly. So pause, acknowledge, and then make sure you actually ask them, not just what they're worried about, but what they're looking forward to.
Right.
So they hear some positive things too.
That's a very good idea. Tips for parents to manage back to school jitters. Number one, don't minimize. We've talked about that. Do talk about what they're looking forward to, and then have a plan. What does that mean? A plan for what?
Right. So I guess it depends on what they're nervous about. So if they're nervous about being able to manage all the schoolwork or their course load, have a plan for how they're going to structure their day to make sure they get their homework done. If they're nervous about the social piece, see if you can get them involved in some activities ahead of time to meet some peer groups so that they have some friends going in.
So they feel like they've got some tools in their toolkit before they face whatever this is. And then you say, and this is always tough, getting into a sleep routine before school officially starts, or at least that was a challenge in our house.
Absolutely. So over the summer, everybody's on a different schedule. You don't have to get up at a certain time or go to bed at a certain time. And so coming up to the school year is really a rude awakening.
It is indeed, literally a rude awakening. So how far in advance of school starting should you begin to prepare, and what's the best way to do it?
Ideally, you wouldn't really slack off too much. But if they've been sleeping in over the course of the summer, if you can start a few weeks ahead of time, really trying to go to bed, get into a routine, wake up around the same time, even if it's not as early as school would start.
Right, but a little earlier than just sleeping till whenever you want. So let's talk about parents helping kids with school transition. So kids who are going from preschool to kindergarten, or going from elementary to middle school, which is a huge one, and middle school to high school. Avoid telling tales of your worst high school moments, middle school moments. I mean, I guess that seems like that's self-explanatory, but it must happen or you wouldn't have it as a tip.
Yes, I think we've all done that. But if you put yourself in their shoes, they're probably terrified. And then to hear your horror stories of all the bad things that happened before going to school, not helpful at all.
Not helpful. Should you do the opposite? I mean, can you offer some things that you enjoyed about those transitions? That's
a great idea, to talk about the positive things, the great memories, the fun pieces of going to school that you really remember.
The friends that you made. You also suggest that kids attend orientation. Don't blow that off. Why is that important?
Absolutely. So orientation serves a number of functions. One, you get to meet their teachers, but the other is they get to see their classroom and meet some peers who are going to be in that classroom as well.
And it always kind of helps to get the lay of the land before you do anything new, no matter how old you are. You also suggest that you learn if the school has a cell phone policy so that everybody's on the proper page before you begin.
Right. So these days, almost all the teens I see have cell phones. So some of the schools allow you to have your phone in class, but most of them don't. So you want to know ahead of time if that's allowed or not, so you can have a plan with your teen about how you're going to communicate after school.
Very important. Have your child practice opening a combination lock. And honestly, I was one of the helpers on the first day of middle school when my son was in middle school, and that was the biggest thing. It was also the biggest thing kids were worried about. They were afraid they couldn't get into their locker.
Exactly. And it takes some practice getting it right to be able to open, so practice ahead of time, so that way on the first day they're not frantic about not being able to get to and from.
You wouldn't act, think necessarily that that would be it. So if your child is going to be walking or using a school bus, you need to be aware of that, right?
Absolutely. And really knowing where the bus pickup is, the safe routes for walking, so where is there a sidewalk versus the open street, and then really being aware of just what route they're going to take.
Practicing that before you go. Exploring extracurricular activities.
So that's one where I think people don't necessarily think about it if their kids are already active, but if you're going to a new school, it's really important to meet that social group early. It's harder to get in with a new social group later in the year. So those extracurricular activities give you a chance to be involved in the school and to meet people.
Now, at that point, let's say we're talking about middle school and high school, is it a good idea to encourage them to try something new?
Absolutely. I think get outside of what you're used to. I mean,
Meet some new people.
Meet some new people, try something different. You might like it, but then if you don't like it, you know you don't. So.
And then you can leave. You also say help your child think of a system for staying organized and tracking assignments, like a planner, or what kind of approach do you think works best for kids that age?
Yeah, it depends. I mean, I think kids right now are really digital, so if that's going to an online syllabus and having a tracking system, or just what's your time going to look like after school? So as soon as you get home, are you going to do your homework for an hour, or are you going to take a break, play a little bit, and then have like a study hour from 5 to 6?
Now, you as an expert on teenagers, what's your thought about whether they need a break and some wind down time, or if you just get homework over with and then do things?
I think every
you have that look that every
different.
parent has. Like, I don't want to deal with this.
I know for me, I was more of a just get it done, but a lot of kids need a break. I mean, school's a long stretch of time where they're using their mind and thinking, and so a lot of times they just need a little bit of a break. But the temptation, of course, is then to go into playing and not getting your homework done until late in the evening.
And then you're not getting to bed on time, and then you don't want to get up and all of that. So there's a little bit of negotiation in there. Tell us what you can about what kids need in the way of sleep in middle school years and high school years.
So I think unlike adults, kids really need a lot more because they're still growing and developing. So if you can aim for 10 hours or so, then that is really ideal. And for the younger kids, even a little bit more than that.
Isn't that something? So they're not just being lazy when they won't get out of bed. They actually really need that sleep.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. These are good. Just have a plan, man. Take the bull by the horns. Please visit our website for a link to Dr. Evans' blog. And we've listed here on your screen Seattle Children's On the Pulse blog that is also full of great information for families. We'll be back in just a few minutes after the break, understanding the bond between humans and dogs.